Hello, members of the Jesuit community. I'm Larry Jackson, the creator of Shades Connected Interactive, presenting the play Overcoming American Ethnic and Racial Implicit Bias. This is our moral compass. I will give you some of the details of our program coming up here. You will see from our magazine, the eye opener at the end of that magazine, my resume. But briefly, I can tell you that I have about 45 years of experience in my practice. I'm retired now, but I was a tax consultant and tax credit acquisitioner for a number of my clients, small business clients here in California. I also have about 20 years of experience teaching religious education to mostly eighth graders, sometimes the sixth graders. The last class was sixth graders preparing for confirmation. Most of my students were Caucasian in middle class areas. Also, I had some African American students and Asian students and Hispanic students. In other words, my students come from all races. Uh, I have been told that am a popular teacher, and I think that is because I provide the students with respect. They respect me, including their parents. I give them a myriad of different approaches to learning about their faith, which includes reading the gospel, the Sunday gospel, which our classes were on Sunday before masses before masses, and taking several field trips, one to the Museum of Tolerance, another to the San Gabriel Missions, another to the Archdiocese Cathedral, and finally to tour the church, our church, where they would learn things about our church, such as the nave is the center aisle of the church. The lectern is called the amble, which is the twin to the altar, where the Word of God, and only the Word of God, is supposed to be spoken. When reading my resume, you will discover that I am a graduate of Seattle University as one of the Jesuit schools way back in 1970. I'm very familiar with, for instance, Aristotle and his discussion on absolutes. I can remember the priest slamming into our heads the difference between absolutes and relativism. And that brings me to the discussion regarding a number of different racist incidents that have occurred on Jesuit campuses, mostly high school campuses, but it's something that's embarrassing and something that we can do something about. And that is what our program is about. Just for instance, you remember Parker Rice and Eli Pettit at the University of Oklahoma and their racist chants. Parker Rice was a graduate of, I think, a Texas Jesuit high school. And then there were people that said that Parker Rice was not a racist, neither was Eli Pettit. And my response to that is really, they were chanting racist chants very gleefully. To me, they blamed it on alcohol. That just meant to me they were just a drunk racist. Now, Charlie Burkhart, this boy that was kicked out of a Jesuit high school for his racist remarks, to me, he seemed to have had some experience in football where he may have negatively come in contact with African American kids, and from that standpoint, he developed this racist attitude. and he was removed from the high school judiciously. And what our program is about is like James Comey said, it is time for us to stand up for what is right and do something. And that's what our program is about, doing something. We have a series of movies. The first one will be released this winter and spring, and going to all of the Jesuit high schools and colleges, and all of the Catholic schools, and a number of other religious organizations, both Catholic and non-Catholic. This will give us a basis for viewing a play that has a number of different incidents in it that we give our opinion on from the audience, and work towards workable solutions. Oh, this reminds me of the joke, you may have heard it. It's the person that's trying to get into heaven, and he's meeting with St. Peter, and he says that he needs to get into heaven. He says, I need to get into heaven, I need to get into heaven. It's getting kind of warm out here, and I know it's air conditioned in there, and I need to get into heaven. You got to let me in. So St. Peter's looking at his book and says, well, what have you done? I don't see much down here for what you've done to deserve to get into heaven. And he says, I went to Mass every Sunday. Every Sunday from 9:30 to 11, I was in Mass. And he said, yeah, I see that here. What else have you done? He says, did you teach religious education? No, I didn't do that. Maybe you were an usher? No, I didn't do that. Maybe you helped serve Mass? No, I never. You weren't an altar server or anything? No, I never did. I went to Mass every Sunday from 9:30 to 11. You got to let me in to heaven. And it's getting warm out here. You got to let me into heaven. And so St. Peter says, well, let me go talk to the boss and see if we can let you in. Well, he does that, and he comes back. St. Peter comes back, and he says, the boss says, you can get in every Sunday from 9:30 to 11. From time to time, I have run into people in the church or in our community who behave as if they think that Catholicism is some sort of an exclusive club. Just to give you, for instance, after Mass, after one of the Masses in my early years of teaching religious education and chairing the high school program and running the guitar Mass for the 7th and 8th grade Catholic students, after Mass, I was standing out with Father O'Neill at the steps of the church, and we were talking about different things, and this little girl comes running up to us, very excited, and she says, Father O'Neill, guess where we're going? And he answers very quickly, because she kind of interrupted us, and he answers, you're going to heaven. And she goes, no, and I respond, well, you only have a couple more choices. And so we kind of chuckled about that. But that's on the light side. On the heavier side, I've experienced where a priest said in a homily that he wanted the gates of heaven to be transparent so that he could see who was in there before he decided to go in. And I'm thinking again, he only had a couple of more choices. This is again this attitude that somehow Catholicism is some sort of an exclusive club. Then I had a parishioner come up to me, I believe it was either after Mass or after teaching or during ushering or something, and asked me this strange question: how long have you been a Catholic? And that really threw. Nobody ever asked me something like that, and I kind of thought, first response is to say all my life, but when I was a toddler, 2 years old, between 2 and 4, I was stricken with tuberculosis. So I was in the hospital for 2 years. I was also blind one of those years. And I just kind of had to figure out. I really didn't get baptized until just before First Communion because having this illness, I was kind of overlooked in that regard. So I had to say, 50 some odd years or whatever, how old I was at that time. I thought that was very strange that he would ask me. And then someone later told me that he was a recent convert. So I guess he wanted to know how they let me in. Again, this attitude that somehow being a Catholic, you're in some kind of an exclusive club. Our play, Overcoming American Ethnic and Racial Implicit Bias, deals quite effectively with this current wave of hate. There are about 20 different incidents in the play. The play is somewhat humorous, but not slapstick humor. Has a number of different incidents, as I said, about 20. That the audience gets to view and express their opinions on. And our objective is for those opinions to lead to workable solutions. The current wave of hate reminds me of that story. You probably heard about the 2 rooms with the 12 people in each room sitting at a table trying to eat their soup. And they have these very long spoons. In the first room, the 12 people have these angry looks on their faces because every time they bring the spoon up to their mouth, they spill the soup and they don't get any of the soup. So it's a very trying experience, and it's very frustrating. And because of that frustration, they're just angry as all get out. That's what we see today with some of these people who have this tremendous amount of hate in their spirit. And the second room, we have another 12 group of people who are sitting at a table eating their soup and with smiles on their faces because they have the same long spoons, but those spoons are going to feed the neighbor next to them. So everyone gets fed, everyone's happy, and things work out very well because they are taking care of their neighbor. So we're looking for the Jesuit community to take the lead because in our program, because the Jesuit community is well known, has a mantra of social justice. So, the adage of a thing cannot be and be at the same time in the same respect, either as said in Matthew 12:30, Jesus says you're either for me or you're against me. So you cannot be of an attitude that you love God and hate your neighbor. So this is what our play is about, is bringing about that love that dispels the hate. What, in conclusion, I would like you to do is to view the material that I've sent you. There is a petition of inclusion to sign. Circulate that petition of inclusion and the material to all of your students and encourage them to fully participate in the program. It is for the common good, and it's also for scholarships and grants for participating schools, up to $2 million per school over a period of time. This program, as you go through all of the material, if you have any questions, you can call me to get started. It just basically takes the signing and filling in the information on the petition of inclusion, and then there's another document called the statement of interest. You fill that out and send that in. If you get that in before the 9th of January, I think it's the 9th or the 10th of January, then your school is first in line for the grants and scholarships. When you read through the material, you'll see how our sponsors are going to be providing those grants and scholarships. We're looking for a large audience. This is going to all of the Jesuit high schools and colleges, all the Catholic schools, all of the, going to a number of different other religions, to all people who have or should have moral fiber and intestinal fortitude to do the right thing. So that concludes my little video. You can view the material and sign the documents to become involved. If you have any questions, you can give me a call. I'm Larry Jackson, the writer, director, and producer of Shades Connected Interactive, our moral compass, presenting, overcoming American, ethnic, and racial implicit bias. This is a free broadcast with a number of different incentives to make it worthwhile for your participation. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.